Millions of our people currently believe that a Bible written by history's proven most ungodly group of people and that was brutally imposed upon us during our lowest time in history when they enslaved us now ridiculously contains the true words of God that will now set us free. Millions also believe that we made the N-word ours and that using it now ridiculously empowers us. Millions of Africans in America now also insist that we're not Africans, although countless millions of us have taken DNA testings that have scientifically confirmed our African heritage and identity. It is easy to become desensitized to the litany of outrageous things that our people currently believes in regards to our plight and condition. But there's a deliberate reason for our collective disarray. Through their monopoly over information that we receive that allows them to control what we believe, white oppressive forces have embedded lots of false information into the collective minds of Black people. Most people naively believe that the greatest threat challenging the oppressed is overcoming ignorance. This is, however, untrue. The greatest challenge of the oppressed is overcoming false knowledge, because an ignorant person, knowing that they're ignorant, will seek out the truth. But a person possessing false knowledge and believing that the false knowledge is true stops searching for the truth and therefore becomes mentally enslaved by the false knowledge. This is why white oppressive forces have embedded so many different false knowledge into the collective minds of the Black masses. More specifically, they did this to us because in order for an oppressed people to liberate ourselves, we must first gain a clear, concise, and accurate understanding of our plight and condition. Because if the oppressed population's understanding of their plight and condition are flawed, then all liberating strategies and remedies that stem from those misunderstandings will also be flawed. Therefore, the white oppressors keeps Black people believing lots of false information as a means of preventing us from getting an accurate understanding of our plight and condition that are necessary in order to formulate a viable solution to our liberation. This is why those who know the truth of our plight and condition must teach. African proverb. Black people are not suffering from a silly Willie Lynch slave syndrome myth, which presents what would in fact be the least effective method used for controlling generations of people. It's absolutely not how true brainwashing is achieved. The Willie Lynch slave syndrome myth is false knowledge that prevents us from gaining the true understanding of our condition. Black people's oppression has nothing to do with fulfilling a biblical prophecy from a Bible written by the most ungodliest people we've ever encountered. If the Bible was true, and if we were the Jews of the Bible, then we should have left America in the year 2019, according to Deuteronomy chapter 28, because that was the year we reached our 400-year anniversary in the United States. We, however, did not, because the Bible is also false knowledge that prevents us from getting the true understanding of our plight. Moreover, getting our morals from a Bible written by a group of people that have no morals when it comes to how they treat us is absolutely absurd. The Bible and the Willie Lynch literature are both false knowledge that keeps Black people from gaining a true and accurate understanding of our plight and our condition. The understanding that's necessary in order to develop the proper countermeasures that are required in order to liberate ourselves. The truth of our plight and condition is that Black people are victims of white narcissistic abuse syndrome. It's a term that describes specific personality traits that develop amongst Black people as a direct result of being constantly subjected to receiving only the fraudulent worst and possible information about ourselves. These information comes exclusively from white sources. White social scientists determined a long time ago that the white society's monopoly over information that Black people receives could be transformed into their greatest weapon used for controlling and subjugating Black people. More specifically, they determined that by negatively distorting virtually everything that Black people believes about ourselves, they could condition us to perceive ourselves through a false inherent inferior identity that aids the white society in maintaining its social dominance over Black people. This is our hidden reality. Whenever those in power want to brainwash an entire generation of people into thinking and behaving the way they want them to, they always heavily demoralize them. People can be easily controlled by the information they receive about themselves. When people are constantly fed positive, affirming information about themselves, this raises their collective self-esteem and unifies them. However, when people are constantly fed negative information about themselves, the exact opposite happens. They become demoralized, divided, self-loathing, and more compliant with the oppressor's dominance over their lives. And it doesn't matter if the information presented is untrue. Most people will act upon it because they've all been given the same negative information about themselves. This is precisely the psychological warfare that's being deployed against Black people by white oppressive forces. It's a well-proven psychological warfare tactic that utilizes the immense power that shame and unrelenting demoralization has upon the human mind to mentally enslave millions of Black people. To achieve this objective, they've miseducated us to believe that we come from nothing because our ancestors were illiterate and uncivilized, and that therefore their invasion and enslavement of our ancestors benefited us. They tell us that we have the lowest IQs, that we kill each other at the highest rate, that we commit most crimes, that we're the largest benefactors of affirmative action, that we're the highest recipients of welfare. And they've got many of us believing that our racial group hasn't invented much throughout history. They've in fact got many millions of Black people perceiving ourselves as being the leeches of society that benefits from inventions made by white people. We've been made to perceive ourselves as moving forward into the future, riding the backs and riding the coattails of the white society. Side note, critically think. Some things are so obviously ridiculous that it's only by not critically thinking that it cannot be seen. When critically thinking and applying common sense, it then becomes clear just how cartoonishly unrealistic it actually is. That virtually everything that we receive from the white society about us are consistently negative and Black racially demoralizing and Black racially devaluing. This absurdity exists because it's fraudulent propaganda. A fact that has remained consistent throughout history is that the oppressor's depiction of the oppressed is never a true one. It's always falsely negatively distorted to serve the oppressor's hidden nefarious agendas against the oppressed. This fact has remained consistent throughout history and is especially still true in regards to Black people living under white oppression. The truth on all accounts are in fact the exact opposite from what they've manipulated millions to believe. The world's top 4 highest IQs are held by Black people. In the US, the group that commits most crimes kills each other at the highest rate that makes up the largest recipient of welfare and that are the largest benefactors of affirmative action are all in fact Caucasians. In regards to the white society's propagated narratives that we Africans, we illiterate and uncivilized, this is also totally untrue. The hidden reality is that long before the Europeans invaded Africa, it was Africans that civilized Europe. All of Greece's first scholars openly acknowledge that they received their formal education in Africa. Africans invented the wheel, paper, the calendar, the concept of 24 hours in a day. Africans that are first to build in stone and to smelt metal. The world's oldest university, library, manuscript, encyclopedia, human, prosthetics, mathematical tools, medical journals are all located in Africa. Africans also introduced the daily bath to Europeans. They've taught us everything in reverse. And in regard to the white society's propagated narrative that black people are the leeches of society that haven't invented much throughout history, the truth is also the exact opposite. The hidden reality is that in spite of cultural traumas wrought by the injustices of white racism and slavery, most inventions that have revolutionized the world were either in fact invented by black people or deliberately inspired by earlier inventions by black people. Without black people, there would exist no internet, no cell phones. We wouldn't have cameras and microphones on our cell phones. We wouldn't have the accurate weather forecasting system. We wouldn't have the cataract laser removal scope. There would be no emails, no GPS, no hearing aids, no touch-tone phones, no caller IDs, no home surveillance security system, no home game cartridges, no motorized vehicles, no steam engines, no traffic lights, no working light bulbs, no elevators, therefore no skyscrapers, no air conditioning. We wouldn't have the modern color PC. We wouldn't have 3D movies. We wouldn't have central heating, refrigerators, helicopters, washing machine, lawnmowers, dryers, refrigerated truck, blood banks, fiber optics, nanotechnology, the female sanitary pads, bathroom tissue holders, pencil sharpeners, etc., etc. Black people have in fact enriched nearly every aspect of the lives of every person on this planet through our many inventions. The hidden reality is that the white society exploits the genius minds of black people while simultaneously falsely denigrating and marginalizing the image of black people in order to create and sustain false assumptions within the society that aids in maintaining their white social dominance over black people. Your perception of reality is an elaborate white deception. The public at large are actually functioning based upon a false version of reality that falsely exalts whites and falsely marginalizes blacks. This is possible because public perception of reality is not actually shaped based upon facts nor reality. It's actually shaped by the narratives that are repetitively fed into a society. Therefore, the basic tool required for the distortion of reality is to merely feed distorted narratives into the society. The public at large will then function based upon those distorted narratives rather than the true reality. This is precisely what the white society has done. Because the white ruling class controls all the narratives, they therefore literally owns the perception of reality. We are currently catering to a false version of reality created and decided by white social scientists and put in place by white propagandists for the benefit of the white society. They systematically feed distorted narrative into a society that falsely exalts their racial group and falsely marginalizes black people. As I said before, this creates false assumptions within the society that the society then functions based upon as being facts that aids in maintaining white social dominance over black people. It's a covert but well-proven social engineering system. This system literally whitewashed the perception of reality. Through it, the collective self-esteem of the white masses has been falsely bolstered at the expense of the collective self-esteem of the black masses. This is our hidden reality. And they keep our minds dumbed down and distracted by Willie Lynch myth and distorted so we cannot see our reality. We must wake up to our reality. This psychological warfare system provides the white society with a more proficient method for controlling and subjugating black people using psychological warfare. For unlike the past blatant racist subjugation tactic that black people were easily able to identify and therefore develop counter strategies against, this system is not easily recognized nor easily comprehended by many of its black victims. This psychological warfare program works so well, in fact, that it not only makes black people more compliant with white dominance over our lives, in many cases, it makes black people even prefer white dominance over our lives. It is at the root of both the profound division and self-hatred now affecting so many black people, and it is at the root of the heart of internalized feelings of false superiority that many Caucasians possess. This is our hidden reality. It works so well, because the oppressed will always believe the fraudulent worst about themselves. Frantz Fanon said that. Because this system remains classified, no one knows the true name assigned to this elaborate psychological warfare system, this elaborate perception management system. So many of us who are aware of it have appropriately named it the Black People's Matrix. Through the white society's monopoly over information that we receive and the media images we see, they've created an elaborate prison for our minds. A prison for our minds that works by keeping us believing the fraudulent worst about ourselves and keeping our collective aggression shifted away from the white society and redirected towards our own people. This is our reality that we must wake up to. We will never liberate ourselves clinging to a biblical fairy tale and a silly slave syndrome myth. There are social sciences that are being deployed against us that we must elevate our minds to learn and then develop counter strategies against. One love and peace. This is the truth of our plight and condition.